going to talk about mobility, and then we're going to do some mobility warm up, and then we're going to go through each individual piece of the stroke. For those who've been paddling a long time, this will be the opportunity to maybe learn about a tweak or think about paddling in a different way. You know, we come from different backgrounds, we have had different coaches, and the reality is that every coach has a different style. So there will be things that a coach will say to you that, or an expectation that they have that's different than what I'm going to say tonight. And that's okay, because your responsibility as a crew member is to do what your coach wants you to do. So what I may say tonight may be slightly different than things you've heard. I've been very fortunate that I've had, I don't know how many coaches, different coaches, probably 5 or 6 different coaches. And most of them have been at a very high level, and everyone explains it differently. But the basics of Dragon Boat don't change. So those of you who've been with me for the last 12 weeks, I talk about it a lot. And I've been reading Jim Farintosh's book, and I thought he did a really good job. And he said, dragon boating is a triangle. And the triangle is your physical training, your technical ability, and your mental strength. So, you know, when we talk about physical, and I talk about this when we do our training sessions, it's a blend. It's a blend of your cardio, it's a blend of strength training, and mobility and flexibility, because all of those are the pillar of what builds our physical strength that we bring to the boat. Then we go into technical. And technical is working through all aspects of the stroke and being the best paddler that we can be. And then the mental aspect is having a positive attitude and being open to learn and to change and to adapt depending on what crew you're on. You know, different coaches have emphasis on different things. And so when you get in that boat, even when you jump in, for those of you who were at the Stratford race in 2019 with Hope Floats, when Estelle and I jumped in the boat for the final, you know, Sally took a moment to explain to Estelle and I what was different about the Hope Float stroke and the timing and all of that. And so it made it easier for us to know, okay, this is how the boat's going to be efficient. Because if we had come and put what we normally do in our own crew boats to the boat, we wouldn't have been effective, because what you need is 20 people doing the same thing. But that triangle are the 3 pillars, and that's what you bring to any boat that you're in. So mobility, for the, you know, in the first alternate workout that we did way back in February, we talked about mobility, and we did stick mobility, which was actually quite popular. And so I wanted to do a bit of a warm up and talk about the movements in stick mobility. So we're going to take about 5 minutes right now, 5-10 minutes. We're going to do a little bit of stick mobility. I'm going to run you through a workout, and then we're going to go into our technique. And I'm going to do a bit with the broomstick, and I'm going to do some demonstration with a paddle. I can see a few of you brought your paddles tonight. I just want you to be really careful with your paddle when we get to the point where we're practicing, if you're sitting on a chair. With the carbon fiber paddles, there's just a very thin layer of carbon that actually holds the flare of your blade together. And so you don't want to ever chip it. And so that's why they'll tell you, for those who are new to paddling, you never rest your paddle. I have gym mats down here like this. It never goes on the pavement, never goes on the grass. You can, you know, rest it on your foot, but always the ideal way to hold your paddle is upside down, because this will chip and it will fill with water, and they're a very expensive piece of equipment. So if you have a paddle tonight, that's great. Just make sure you're on a chair that's high enough that you're not going to impact anything with it. That's why Swiffer handles and broomsticks are perfect for what we're going to do tonight. So I'm going to get everybody to get off their chairs, and I want you to go into a low lunge position, and I hope the camera's set up so that you can see this. So you're going to go down on one knee, and the other foot's going to be out in front of you. So just kind of a resting low lunge, like we would be doing a hip flexor stretch. And what I want you to do, now depending, everybody's going to be a bit different depending on what you have to use for your mobility. I've got a 4-foot dowel here. You want to be about 4 feet apart. So if your broomstick's longer, then you might want to just choke up a little bit on it. But what I want you to do is I want you to actually engage it. So I want you to push towards the center. So you're either, if you've got it at the end, so you're just pushing it. And what you're going to feel is you're going to feel your shoulder blades engage. And then what I want you to do, once I see everybody in position, is I want you to create that kayak paddling motion. You're keeping your body nice and tall. Your body is not moving. Your head is forward. And you're just slowly moving. Good job, everyone. Now I want you to pause at the back end, and I want you to do it in reverse. Reverse is a lot harder. If you find your elbows are bending, just choke up on whatever you're holding. Excellent. All right, let's switch legs, and we're going to do about 5 rotations on the other side. Guys are looking good. Make sure as you're doing the exercise that you are pushing inwards, because that's where the contraction is. You want to feel those muscles. All the push-ups we've been doing, all the bent over rows, you're going to feel those muscles. That's what you want to feel. Because the truth of the matter is if we dragon boat with just our arms, we wouldn't get very far. Okay, and pause, and now take it backwards. And what you're really doing is starting to warm up for the rotation of the dragon boat stroke. All right, stay in this position. Now what I want you to do is hold it. If you've got your left leg down, whatever legs you've got down, that hand is going to be down by your hip. And I want you to rotate out and come back. And do that 5 times. Again, you're keeping your back nice and tall. In this one, you can let your head trail. And then switch legs and do 5 on the other side. Again, thinking about those paddling arms. Stop talking to all you guys and doing this. You really want to open up that body. Excellent. Hold your broomstick over your head. Stay in this low lunge position and bend to the side. You need to stabilize your hips to do that. Your arms are not moving. This is not the exercise. This is the exercise. Really feel those obliques that we've been working on so hard. Contract. Excellent. All right. Now we're going to do another rotational exercise, staying in this low lunge. Actually, switch your legs. I want you to pull apart on the stick. And then I want you to rotate towards your front leg as far as you can go. Hold it there for a second. Then I want you to push your arms together and come back to center. When you're at center, pull apart, give it a twist. When you go as far as your range of motion, push your hands together and come back to center. We're going to do that one more time on each side. So pull apart, engage your arms, twist away, pause, push together, back to center. Pull apart, twist, push together, back to center. Excellent. Let's stand up. All right. Separate your feet a bit more than shoulder width apart. And I want you to pull on the stick, and I want you to lower into a side lunge as you're rotating, and then come back up and go down to the other side. You're going to feel this in your adductors or your inner thigh. When you've done 3 on each side, you can stop. 2 more. I want you to rotate the pole around your head 5 times in one direction. Don't hit your ceiling. And then I want you to switch direction. You're going to find that one direction is easier than the other. Excellent. You can put your stick down for now. I want to finish with a couple of those who've been working out with me, YTWLs. So it's like YMCA, but for Dragon Boaters. So we're going to start in our Y position. You're actually pushing your fingers back. You're feeling those shoulder blades engage. You're dropping to a T. You're making a W, coming up to an L. I'm going to do that 2 more times. Y, T, W, L. 1 more. Y, T, W, L. Excellent. Good job. Everybody's warmed up. Okay. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of things before we go on to technique. So for strength and cardio, as we're getting close to the end of our dryland training, where we've been together twice a week, you know, it's a bit nerve-wracking to think, okay, well, what are we going to do until we get into the boat? And how are we going to keep up this level of fitness? Because once we hit about a 2-week window, we start to revert. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping up on it. So I know many of you do the videos on opposite days, or you do them again, which is just fantastic. I can't tell you how thrilled I am with that. But I want you to aim for 2 strength workouts, 2 cardio workouts a week. So what is cardio, right? Because everybody has a different definition of cardio, and we're all built differently, and we're all at different fitness levels. You want your cardio to start at about 60% of your maximum heart rate. And if you don't know how to calculate your maximum heart rate, it is the number 220 minus your age. That's typically your maximum heart rate. So you want to be aiming for about 60% of that, where you're in that working phase. And then as you get stronger, which many of you are after coming through these 12 weeks, you want to be working up to the point where you're actually at 75 to 80% of that, because that's what's building the endurance for that 2K that everybody is always so worried about. So things you can do for cardio. If you're walking, power walk. Hold water bottles, hold weights in your hand, walk up and down hills, do stairs. And then, you know, we've got joggers and runners. You can be on a bike, you can be on a spin bike, you can be on a paddle erg or a rowing erg, or you can do plyometric cardio exercises where you're jumping up on a box or doing jumping jacks or something like that, jumping rope. But really start to think about your heart rate, because that's really what's going to serve you for the long haul in a race. You hit that 350 meter of a 500 meter race, and I remember these days very well, you got nothing left. Your cardio is what will carry you through the race. But remember that it's the cardio with the blend of strength. But if you've got no air left in your lungs, they're going to be dragging you across the finish line. And I had many races like that, and realized that even though I thought my cardio was good, it wasn't dragging boat good. So just keep focusing on that, even though we're not necessarily in the boat yet. So I talked about technique, and we have people from all different teams, which is wonderful. And every coach has a different approach and a different method. So again, it's remembering, taking the nuggets from tonight and remembering that your coach ultimately defines how your crew operates and what's expected of you and how you work together as a crew. Because the beauty of dragon boating, and when it's most beautiful, is when you've got 20 paddlers doing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. And I've heard coaches say it's actually almost impossible, but I have seen it and it is really beautiful. And in those races, you feel like you're flying. So we're going to start talking about technique. So I'm going to sit on this chair. I'll be hopping back and forth between the paddler and my chair. We're going to talk about the setup. So you hear coaches talk about setup. Another word that they use for setup is A-frame. So your A-frame, your top arm is open as much as possible, and the hand should be in line with your forehead. This is not, I'm gonna grab paddle. You wanna be around your forehead eye area. Oh wow, that feels so much better. So you're looking forward, you're here, you're leading with your chest. So you're moving forward this way. I'm not overextending, I'm just out there. My paddle's out there, I've got a slight bend in my arm. This frame is solid. You guys have heard me over and over again, straight limbs, keep that frame really tight. Because if you drop your arm, look, there's no power there. Just even pop that up and down and then hold it in frame. And you'll see how much more power you have as you drive it into the water. So you're not locked out, you've got a slight bend in that arm, and you're there, leading with your chest. I'm just looking at my notes, you guys, so I don't forget anything. So your body's tall, you're open, you're leading with your chest. I remember Estelle saying that to me. I was stroke in the Not Abreast boat, and she always said to me, if you lead with your chest, you'll actually get farther forward. And I tried it and it was amazing. So thank you, Estelle. The other thing to remember, why you sit open, that oxygen.
Chest proud.
What's that, Nancy?
Chest proud.
Chest proud, that's right, chest proud. If you lead with your head, if you do not lead with your chest and you lead with your head, this is what happens. You hinge over, they call it hinging. You look like this. First of all, you can't get any oxygen into your lungs. And where are you going to paddle? You're going to be way down here. You want to be up here. You want to get out there because we're going to start talking about water connection. So what I want you to do, we're just going to play with the setup. So I want you to start with the paddle about at your knees or your broomstick. And I just want you to move into that A-frame position and back. So you're just moving forward and back. You're not taking a stroke, you're just moving. You'll feel like somebody's pulling that bottom hand. Just pulling it forward. And what you're going to feel, we've been working on all of this, our lats and our obliques. You can feel those engage as you move forward. They're getting ready to put that paddle in the water. Now, if you're new to paddling, try either side. So I know some of you haven't even been in a boat yet. So I am a right paddler by definition. I've been doing more on my left because in an outrigger you paddle on both sides, but just find where it feels good. And that'll give you a clue whether you're a right or a left side paddler. And your coach will work with you to see where you're stronger, where your technique is better. One of the other things, if you can see, I actually have almost no grip on the top of my paddle. Now, when I'm dragon boating, I have it clamped around. You want all 5 fingers engaging with your paddle down here. This hand is really a guide. It's the strength and the guide. What a lot of new paddlers tend to do is they break their wrist. So if I'm in my setup and I break my wrist, look what happens. I'm like, coach, I'm in my A-frame. Look, I've got a great A-frame. But the paddle has come closer to my forehead and my elbow has dropped. So relax. This will do its job. Its job is to push that paddle into the water. And you don't want to lose your paddle, so you're going to have it connected to your arm at all times. Does anybody have any questions about setup before we move on? No? All right. I'm going to allow for a few minutes at the end for questions. All right, the catch. So the catch is when the paddle engages with the water. That's what they call the catch. So with the catch, now there's varying opinions on the position of your body and where the paddle enters in a catch. So you're going to have coaches who want you way up front. You're going to have ones that are, you're kind of in the seat, you're right by the seat in front of you. And again, that's really a coach's call. What I'm going to show you tonight is how to reach comfortably, and I'm going to talk about the angle and the connection of the paddle. But again, your coach is going to have their own style, and that's what your expectation, that's what you're expected to do. So when you go into your catch, is you're going to, we're in our setup. Now I'm going to drop my shoulder because the blade is going to start going down towards the water. And I'm going to show you on the erg in a minute. But that shoulder's going to drop, and then I'm going to put the paddle in the water. You'll hear a coach say that they want a positive angle. The positive angle is the angle that the blade of the paddle goes into the water. Because watch and see, if I go in here, as soon as I start to press, you can see from the shaft of my paddle that now I'm pushing the water this way. And so paddling is basically physics. You want to jam that paddle in, and you want to move the greatest amount of volume of water possible. If your blade is like this, you're really scooping, and what you're going to do is give the person behind you a shower. So you want to make sure when you're going in that when you drop that shoulder, you're going to see that my A-frame extends just a little more. So I'm in setup, I come down, my paddle goes down, it's at a 90-degree angle. That's how I want my blade to stay as much as possible while I pull back. Okay, so I'm going to get on the paddle erg. Paddle erg again is not, it's not a driving boat, but it's closer. I have no idea what it's set for. Could be very heavy. So I'm going to have my heels engaged. So here's my setup, and I'm going to pull. And I'm going to pull. So when I go, I'm going to go, yeah, that's really light. It's going to come down. So I'm going to talk about this in a second. So you're going to come down, and it's a fluid motion. But the catch is essentially that moment, and you're going to feel it when you're in the boat, when the water and the paddle have that connection. As that blade goes down, they call that the sweet spot. As that blade comes down, you're going to feel it connect with the water. And then you're going to know that's the time to trigger it. That's the time to pull. So it's going in, going in, going in. Ideally, your pinky finger is going to be wet. And that's when you trigger it. And that's when you pull. So you're coming in, and that's when you're pulling. So the catch is that point of connection. Just looking. So let's try practicing the catch. So sit on your chair. Come up into your setup. And all I want you to do is I want you to drop your blade and pick it up. So you're coming down and up. So you've got a soft bend in your top arm. Bottom arm is nice and straight and strong. And you're just coming down and up. So you can see that my back is straight. Should look in the mirror to make sure I'm actually showing you guys right. So my back is nice and straight. I'm leaning forward. I'm chest proud. And that blade is going in. Nice. Good work. Nice, Jamie, that's great. All right. So this is where the timing of dragon boating starts to come in. You've gone into your setup, you've caught your water, you know you've got just buckets of water to pull because we're going to move that boat. We're not moving water, we're moving a boat. So now we're going to move into the pull phase of the stroke. So the pull phase, there's a lot of movements, and we've been talking so much in our training about compound movements. The pull is a compound movement. So now you've got your water, you're starting to pull that paddle towards you. You want to be pulling it at a positive or almost a straight angle as long as possible. Because the minute it goes like this, again, you're shoveling water. You're giving somebody a bath and you're riding on the boat. You are not helping move that boat forward. So you need to now engage all of this that we've been working on. That engages. You're going to de-rotate that shoulder and come to your hip. You want your hand, when you're sitting in the boat, it's going to be in the shoulder blade of the person in front of you. Because again, if your paddle's down here, you're shoveling water. Everything's broken, that frame is broken. So you're going to come out here, you're going to go down, and you're going to de-rotate. So let's do that. I'm going to do it on the erg. And it is choppy, and you're not going to get the exact motion of being in a boat. Even when we do these drills in the boat, you're stopping your body, especially those of you who've paddled for a while who have that muscle memory already built in. So when you're going, you're pulling. And the speed of the boat is not determined exclusively by the stroke rate. So you'll see teams that paddle really, really fast, but it's the power on that blade and how much water you're engaging with that actually can move the boat forward faster at a lower rate. So if you're making that connection with the water, I can be going slower. And if you can hear the fan, but as I connect, I'm actually going to go farther with each stroke. So it's a more efficient use of our bodies because we're going to tire ourselves out going 80, 90 strokes a minute. And those are, you can go on a higher stroke rate for a short distance, but on a 500 or in a 2K, you want to feel that connection and that power with each stroke. But the power isn't coming from my arms. Your arms are not the strongest part of your body. It's your back and your obliques. This is the frame. This is just moving the paddle. De-rotating through my back and all these muscles that we've been working on, keeping those nice and tall, not collapsing, because again, then I have to paddle like this. I have no choice. But if I rotate and connect, I can move that boat. Keep going, I'm just having a peek.
Gwen, I have a quick question.
Yes, absolutely.
What is happening with your legs and your hips when you're in the boat?
Excellent question. So, what to do with your feet and your hips? I was probably in year 4 when I finally felt brave enough to even ask somebody, because I never knew what to do with my feet. So part of all of this, and this is where you start getting into the nuancing, that's how keen I know you are, Kathy. When you start getting into the nuancing of paddling, the truth is everyone can paddle. But what you see when you see brand new crews is, we call it choo-choo arms. They go down the course like this, and they'll get down the course, but they're not being efficient. So our frame and our positioning, but our legs are also part of that. And that's one of the reasons we've been doing so many squats and glute bridges and all of those things, is we're actually starting the movement of the posterior chain right from our feet. And it's our hip drive that is helping us to derotate. So when we go into a stroke, when I'm going through, my hip is coming forward, my knee goes up a little bit, my hip is actually rotated. And that helps my body to get into position. So when I pull, I'm driving that gunnel side leg, that side leg back. So it's almost like a pedaling motion. So one of the things that Scott Murray, who's the president of Dragon Boat Canada, who does our coaching training, he said when he starts people, he has a gym full of paddlers. He doesn't start them up here. He starts them here, and he gets them moving like this. So if you're a kayaker, or if you've done any kind of movement like that, you'll see your hips are already moving. You've already got that pedaling motion starting. And that's where mobility comes in and all of that. So when you go forward, you're going to break that knee, and that hip is going to help you move. So you're coming back, pushing out, forward and back. And what you're going to find is it's a little easier to get a little farther. How's that feel, Kathy?
Yeah, that answered my question. Thanks, Gwen.
No problem.
Now, when you're in the boat, is there a place for you to rest your feet? Is it underneath the seat in front of you?
It really depends on the boat, which anybody who has had any experience with boats will tell you. Newer boats are great because they're designed with kind of a little strut that you can get your heels up on. Some of the older boats have posts between, like in the center of the seat. So you have to kind of, each boat's a little bit different, and you have to kind of find your place with it. So, you know, there's no easy answer. That'll be something that we can go more into when we're actually on the canal, and we can look, because there's new boats as well. So you'll really see the difference between the boats. But yeah, ultimately there is a bit of a spot. Sometimes you're kind of more by the gunnel. There's a little block by the gunnel, and one foot's there and one's in that center spot. But it's about trying to find that balance where you can pedal and get that hip moving. And so typically when you get into a new boat, it takes a little bit of time to kind of figure out where you can get your feet positioned. But excellent question. Great. Does anybody have any other questions before we go to the exit and recovery?
Gwen, I just wanted to add to that, that if your legs are short, what you can do is bring a short piece of a 2x4, and then you can put it up against any ridge in the boat and rest your feet against that.
True, but that only works in practice.
That's, yeah, I guess you're not allowed to bring that into a race.
You can't bring it into a race, but
Yeah,
but I hear you, because I have very short legs and a very long torso. So part of the finessing of a coach is getting people into the right seats. So for me, I'm either in the first 3 seats of the boat or the back 3 seats of a boat. And that is because it is more compact, it's shorter, and the distance between the seats are shorter. If you're tall, if you are you know, a heavier person, doesn't mean you're not fit, but if you are heavier weight-wise to other parts of the boat, they will put you in the center of the boat. You're the engine, you're the driver, you're the one who's keeping that boat centered and balanced. So each seat has its own role to play as well. But Nancy's right, I've tried yoga blocks, I've had 2x4s. What happens is if you're in the wrong seat, and I've had that happen, I had a coach who put me in 6. 6, my feet don't touch the strut. Well, I have no power because I have nothing to push on, right? So I got through the race, but I didn't paddle particularly well. I was subbing in on a team that didn't know me. I didn't paddle particularly well, and I probably didn't contribute to any success the boat would have had. So, but that's on your coach. What's important for you is finding that leg position and be willing to speak up. If a coach, especially a coach who doesn't know you, puts you in a seat where you can't get that leg drive. What we're talking about today is just making sure you get that drive and you get that pedaling so that your body is doing that motion. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. So let's move on. I want to talk about exit and recovery, because that's another really tricky one. So exit. So what happens is you pull that paddle. I've heard it referred to as pull it to your pocket, because people don't know how far to pull their paddle. So by the time your paddle gets here, there's really very little efficiency left. As soon as it starts breaking behind you, now you're back in that negative or almost shoveling position, right? Water's coming up. And if you think of how fast the water's flowing, what you're actually doing is you've become a brake, right? You're slowing the boat down. So you always want to stop kind of just in front of your hip. So you pull it to your pocket, that's where you stop. You go, okay, I can do that. Now what? Well, now you somehow have to get that paddle back out to take that next stroke. So there's a variety of things that happen. Happens with new paddlers, happens with experienced paddlers. Ultimately, what you want to do, turn this way so you can see me, is create space between your body and your arm. And how you do that is you relax your elbow. You don't pull your elbow up. It's not up here. It's very subtle. You're just, as you get to your pocket, you're going to just relax. I've heard it referred to as almost, you know how your hand is when you throw a Frisbee? That's what you want to do. You just want to relax it. So I want you to pull and create space. Okay, so go to there, pull and create space. Let's do that a few more times. Pull and create space. We're not pulling the paddle out of the water just yet. All we're doing is getting to the end of the stroke. As we pull our arm, relax our elbow, and create that space, that's giving that little last bit of inertia and that little last bit of momentum before we recover and start again. So now come into the back end of the stroke where you've created that space. Again, your hand's not down here. The paddle's not there. It's, if I was looking straight ahead and there was someone sitting in front of me, I'd be able to punch them in the shoulder blade. Now what you're going to do is you're going to pull that paddle back. But where is it going to go? What you're going to do is you're going to draw a 7. Might be a backward 7. If you're a right paddler, it's a backward 7. And I'm going to pull the paddle, and then I'm going to draw the top of my 7. So I'm going to sit this way. So I'm done my stroke. I've created space with my arm. Now I'm going to come this way, and you can see now I'm starting to rotate again. And I pull the paddle back, and as I'm leaning forward with my 7, I'm back in my setup position. So start from the back, draw your 7, your hands away, it's at forehead, eye height, and you're ready to drop it in again. What happens is, if you're locked, you have nowhere to go but out here, right? There's nowhere for your body to go. You've locked yourself right up. So you have to have that relaxation to create that space. And again, if you're over here, you're going to pull it this way. And the only way that you're going to be able to go back is to sit up. What that does is that throws the boat off. because now you're moving the boat. So you're really almost stirring. So remember a couple of weeks ago, I talked about what my dragon boat coach was talking about, how you're on that pivot, right? That you're here and you're on that pivot. And you're really just working around that. So if this is me, I'm going forward, I'm coming back. I'm not coming back all the way, because again, then that transfer of weight is throwing the boat off. So I still got a bit of a lean, kind of like a sprinter. If you watch sprinters, they're always got that bit of leaning forward. So I'm sitting up, I'm pole vaulting over, I'm really growing over my stroke as I derotate and sit up, but I'm still leaning a bit forward, even at the end of my stroke. And then I'm creating space, drawing my 7 and going back. Just practice that for a bit. And again, everybody's got different things in their hands today, different lengths. It's a lot easier when you get a paddle. Oh, I like the group effort from Nalini and her husband. They're in sync. That's fantastic, you guys. Good job. Sadly, you're both paddling on the same side of the boat, but that's okay. Excellent. How's that feeling, everyone? So I'm going to talk about one more thing, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. I know we've run a little bit over. I want to talk about your breathing. We've been working so hard on in the point of exertion. Think about when we do a squat and then we go up to a press. Where do I say to put the exertion? Breathe out at the top. Same thing in paddling. As you are pulling the paddle towards you, breathe out. That's where you're exhaling. Then you're going to take that nice big inhale as you set up and start again. And that's where you'll create your tempo. For people who haven't held a paddle for like 18 months, you guys are looking really good. All right, so that's really, that's it. It's only, 4 million things to think about when you're in a boat. One really important thing to remember, and I was very bad at it when I was learning to paddle. A really good coach will give you 1 or 2 things to work on in a practice. You will never get every element of a stroke. It doesn't matter how long you paddle. You will never be technically perfect with every aspect of the stroke. There are these anomalies and prodigies that you see. But for the most part, there's always something to work on. There's always something you can get better at. But when you go to practice, that's part of the mental strength. Pick something, pick 1 thing or 2 things at the most and say, okay, today I'm going to focus on getting my catch right, being close to the water, seeing where my paddle's going to go in, but not looking down in the water because that's not the way we're paddling. We're going that way. But just that's what I'm going to focus on today. Or I'm going to focus on my exit. I'm going to focus at bringing that paddle out at the right spot and not taking it too far back and slowing the boat down. That's what I'm going to focus on today. Because if you try and do everything, you're just going to be frustrated and you're going to wonder why you started this sport in the first place. But I can tell you that as you start to feel that connection to the water, there's this sound that a really good stroke makes. And it's a whoosh sound. And that's when you know you've connected with the water, you've got power. I remember the first time I did it, and it was probably in my 2nd year of paddling, and it surprised me. But I knew that that was the sound I wanted to hear more than anything. And so that was always my focus. So I knew I'd taken a really good stroke when I heard that whooshing sound.